Hey guys, today we're going to start our new unit on domain, and it's all about ecology and different habitats. I want you to start by looking at this page of different ecosystems. Think about what you see in this image. All over the world, from areas as wide as the ocean to areas as small as a puddle on the sidewalk, life exists. Some of these forms of life are easy to see. For example, the humans, the flowers, whereas the other forms of life can only be viewed by using a microscope. For example, all the bacteria or some types of plankton that may be in this image. Over the next few days, we will hear about different places where both living and non-living things exist, and how they interact with one another. We will also learn more about the feeding relationships between living organisms and how humans can take better care of our Earth. We're going to start with Chapter 1. How can squirrels live in cities? Why do bears live in forests? And why do whales live in oceans? Do you ever wonder about such things? Plenty of people do. Hi, my name is Zeke, and I am one of those people who never stops wondering and asking questions. When I was your age, I asked, what do worms eat? Why do some animals migrate from place to place? Where do mosquitoes live? How do flowers live in the desert? Who can survive on glaciers? When I grow up, I decided to become a scientist to try and find the answers to my growing number of questions. The science that I studied in college is called ecology. Its name comes from the Greek language, the word oikos, meaning house or household, spelled ECO in English, and the suffix ology, meaning the study of. Ecology is the study of households, the households of living things such as plants and animals, that is. Plants and animals do not live alone. They are part of a system of households, communities called ecosystems. As an ecologist, I study ecosystems all over the world. I learn about plant and animal relationships and how they interact with one another and with their environment. I love my job because I get to help others understand how everything on Earth is connected. On my travels a few years back, I met a friend of yours, Mr. Rattenborough. He and I made a great team because he is able to squeeze into tiny little spaces and he can poke around in nooks and crannies that I can barely get my big toe inside. Rattenborough told me what quick learners you are and asked if I would come to talk to you about ecosystems, and I can hardly wait, so let's begin. Ecosystems exist on plains and in deserts, forests, lakes, rivers, and oceans. They may be as small as a puddle or as large as a rainforest. They may occupy water or land. No matter their size or location, ecosystems always include living organisms. Organisms are sorted by species. Species are groups of living things that all share similar characteristics. For example, you are a member of the human species. You may look quite different from the person sitting next to you, but you are similar enough so that the body will mistakenly think that you may be a member of the cat or dog species. Ants belong to their own species, quite different from humans. Jellyfish and elephants have their own separate species too. Each species is unique and has characteristics or traits unlike any other species. Think about what makes you unique as a human and what differs between you and other species. An ecosystem is a home to a variety of species, groups of living plants and animal organisms. But an ecosystem includes lots more than just living things, and many parts of an ecosystem are hidden from view. Sunlight, water, air, sand, rocks, and soil are all important parts of an ecosystem. These non-living parts help determine what kinds of plants and animals are able to live in each different ecosystem. For example, plants needing shade and plenty of water would not be very tolerant of or able to endure a hot desert climate. Each species has its own habitat or special home within the ecosystem. I know that Rattenborough has taught you so much about animals this year. He may have also introduced you to the animal habitats or homes when you were in the first grade. Do you remember the names of any of these habitats? We have the forest, deserts, savannas, tundra, saltwater oceans, freshwater lakes, rivers, ponds, and streams. All of these are home to a number of animals and plants. Sometimes you will hear people call these large areas habitats, and at other times you may hear them called ecosystems. Both are correct. A biome is another name you might hear for a large-scale ecosystem, but ecologists do not all agree on precisely how to define what a biome is or how to classify the number of biomes that exist on Earth. You may learn more about biomes in later grades, but for now we will stick with the terms habitats and ecosystems. The word habitat can also refer to a small area that is part of an ecosystem. In other words, a habitat refers to the preferred home of a plant or animal. An ecosystem, then, would be a collection of habitats. But don't get the idea that an ecosystem is just a group of homes for animals and plants to live in by themselves. In every ecosystem, perhaps the most important feature is the interaction between living and non-living things. To understand the difference between ecosystems and habitats, let's look at the rainforest. A rainforest is an ecosystem, a community of living and non-living things. Within the rainforest ecosystem, there are many different species of plants and animals, such as trees, worms, snails, butterflies, frogs, snakes, jaguars, monkeys, turtles, as well as some humans who are living in those dwellings. Each one of these species lives in its own special area, a just right habitat where it can thrive within the rainforest ecosystem. Worms live beneath the soil. Some monkeys scamper along the forest floor, whereas others swing from the high tree branches far above the ground. Jaguars rest on low-lying branches. All living things occupy habitats to which they are particularly suited. Butterflies flit amongst the ferns, and the snail propels itself along a leaf. More than one species may share the same habitat. As you can see, the turtle and frog do, but they interact in a way that helps shape the whole community or ecosystem around them. Physical factors of the environment affect and allow certain organisms to live in certain habitats. A habitat supplies all of an organism's needs for survival: food, water, shelter, and space. Organisms have adapted to their changing environments over time, allowing them to survive. Let's look at a few of these plant and animal adaptations in different habitats and ecosystems around the world. I mentioned the rainforest and its many habitats. Rainforests are just one type of forest. Forests vary widely, depending upon climate and soil differences. The trees of some forests are deciduous, which means they drop their leaves every year, whereas others are coniferous, which means that they are cone-bearing evergreens. Different types of forests support different types of plant and animal life. What forest animals can you name? Some, like jaguars, have the balance needed to lie on the low-lying branches of the trees. Bears have adapted to their habitat by growing claws needed for climbing the trees to find food. Others, like monkeys, have long tails for gripping tree branches as they climb higher and higher. The beaks of some birds are well designed for breaking open seeds, whereas others are designed for sipping the nectar from the sweet flowers. Deserts are arid regions marked by little rainfall. Succulent plants with spiny, waxy leaves are often found in deserts. These special plants, such as cacti, are able to store water in their stems. Some desert plants have long root systems, enabling them to suck up water at a distance. And most desert plants are spaced wide apart, avoiding competition for water. Some desert insects, such as certain types of beetles, have waxy bodies that help them reduce their water loss. Other animals, like the famous camel, are able to survive for long periods of time without drinking water because they store water in their bodies and have adapted to being able to tolerate the high temperatures. Savannas or grasslands usually have few trees or shrubs. Rainfall varies, with some grasslands being wetter than others. The types of grasses vary too, depending upon the temperatures and the amount of rainfall in the region. Sometimes grasses are seasonal, growing only in the winter or spring. Where this is the case, animals often adapt their habitats to match the growth of plants in their ecosystem. For example, when little grass is available, the antelope migrates, and some small rodents hibernate. Because there are few places to hide from enemies in the open grasslands, antelopes display another adaptation for survival. Known for their speed, they run at rates greater than 50 miles per hour. Arctic lands are called the tundra. These treeless areas near the North Pole are cold for most of the year. The Arctic tundra is dark all winter long, and there is permanently frozen water beneath the ground. During brief summers of constant sunlight, a few plants grow, but there is very little vegetation. One animal that is well adapted to the Arctic tundra is the Arctic fox. He has a short, round body with lots of fur and little skin, exposed to the cold. Lemmings are small rodents of the tundra. They burrow under the snow to conserve heat, whereas many other animals, like the caribou in this image, migrate to the warmer areas for the winter. Ecosystems are not limited to only land areas. You know that living organisms also live in aquatic or watery habitats. Freshwater ecosystems, those with little salt, include lakes and ponds as well as rapidly running streams and rivers. In still waters, algae will float to the surface of the water, but in running streams, the algae will cling to rocks, preventing the currents from washing it away. The physical adaptation of the water insect, such as long claw-footed legs, enable them to hold on to rocks and avoid being swept away by the currents. How is it that fish are able to breathe underwater? Yes, the fish breathe through their gills, which allows them to breathe underwater without ever having to come up to the surface. Saltwater ecosystems support a wide variety of plant and animal life. The organisms that call Earth's oceans home cannot survive without the salty content of the water. Like smaller creatures on land that are eaten by bigger creatures, ocean creatures have adapted in many different ways, including camouflage and poisonous spines. Many fish have special ways of lighting up to attract their prey or ward off danger. This is like the fish in Finding Nemo, the anglerfish. Together, we will explore plant and animal life in ecosystems around the world, remembering that everything on Earth is interconnected. Next time, we'll look at some of the links that make these connections. How do you think that you are connected to an ant or a bee? Think about that, and until next time, you will find out if you are right or not.